Bernice Talfaro here. Welcome back to the Psalm 42 Gathering Place. Last week, we discovered that everything valuable about us originates with God. And before Adam ever accomplished anything, God had already given him life. His identity came from God, his value came from God, even the breath in his lungs came from God. But as I went back and began studying Genesis again, I noticed something that had never really stood out to me before. And that is, I considered what creation reveals about the Creator. We often read Genesis looking for what it tells us about ourselves. But before Genesis tells us anything about man, it tells us a great deal about God. As I read chapter 1 again, I noticed something remarkable. Before God ever formed Adam from the dust, before he breathed the breath of life into him, before man ever opened his eyes, God had already prepared everything that man would need: light, the heavens, the earth, the seas, the dry ground, vegetation, the sun, moon, and stars, the fish in the sea, and the birds of the air, animals. Everything was already in place before mankind ever arrived. And that made me stop and ask, why? Why would God create the environment before creating the one who would live in it? Because Genesis isn't simply revealing the order of creation, it's revealing the heart of the Creator. God didn't create man and then wonder how he would provide for him. He provided first, and then he placed. He prepared first, and then entrusted. The first picture scripture gives us is not of God reacting to man's needs, it is a God anticipating them. What does that tell us about God's character? It tells us he is intentional, he is wise, and he is sovereign. He's thoughtful, and he deeply loves the people he created. The first thing Adam experienced was a lack, it was provision. Think about that. Before Adam ever worked the ground, there was already ground to work. And before he cared for the animals, there were already animals for him to care for. Before he ate, food was already growing. And before he exercised dominion, there was already creation over which to exercise it. God prepared everything before giving Adam his assignment. And the more I read Genesis, the more I realize it's not simply revealing the origin of creation, it is revealing the heart of the Creator. He is a God who prepares, a God who provides, a God who thinks ahead, and a God whose authority is seen in everything he speaks into existence. Nothing in creation happened by accident. Everything happened with purpose. Everything happened in order, and everything happened under his authority. And perhaps that's one of the greatest lessons Genesis teaches us. Long before we recognize a need, God had already understood it. And long before we take our first step, God has already demonstrated his wisdom. Long before we accomplish anything, God has already demonstrated his love. The first chapter of the Bible is not only about how the world began, it is about the God who began it, the Creator who prepared a home before creating his children, the Creator who established order before responsibility, and the Creator whose authority created everything and whose love made it ready for mankind before he ever took his first breath. Perhaps Genesis is inviting us to see something much deeper than creation itself. Perhaps it's inviting us to know the Creator, because when you begin to understand the heart of the Creator, you begin to understand why his plans have always been for our good. Not because of what we've done, but because of who he is. I'll be sure to see you next time, right here on the Psalm 42 gathering place. God bless you.